I'm going to get things set up here. We're going to do a live stream this afternoon, kind of impromptu live stream. Actually, let me bring this down a little bit. I think I'm a little bit high, as in like the camera's a little bit tall. Let's see here. Bring myself down. I'm going to bring up the chat window here. Let me know where you are watching from. Interacting with the live stream helps spread the message out and tells the machine more people need to see this. And we're going to have a good time today. I was originally going to do this as a just like a podcast episode, and I will be converting this to audio only for those of you who want to listen to the VOD after the fact and don't do YouTube Premium. I'm not necessarily advocating for YouTube Premium. I use the service because it allows you to drive down the road with the phone on lock, and it continues to play. So other than that, I'm not trying to push you in one way or the other. So I'm going to offer the audio version only over on, the podcast stuff. So let me just really quick go ahead and pull up our chat window so I can see the chat rolling in over here, but I need to actually pull it up so that I can see what it is that you guys are doing. That is, if I can find it. Oh, we got it. Yeah, so let me know where you're watching from. I know that this is impromptu. It's in the middle of the afternoon on Saturday, but I think it'll be a good time. So I got some Alaska. I've got, can we, so the title of this is, what should the gun industry get rid of? And the first comment is, can we say, the answer is get rid of we the people holsters. Oh, my goodness gracious. Don't even get me started about that. The footsteps of a Navy SEAL. So actually, I just got done having lunch with my brother, and he lives about 2 hours away, and he was on his way to a trade show to present, and he asked if I want to have lunch. So on the way, you guys, some of you may be too young to remember this, but I'll try to explain it. There was an old spoof energy drink commercial called Power Thirst. It was one of the first YouTube videos it was ever published, right? And it was hilarious, right? And from that whole thing, we call energy drinks science. So I was like, hey man, I'm dragging ass today. On your way in, if you're getting some science, I would like one. Grab two. And this is what he drinks. So it just so happens that I had sent him that message, and he literally had just walked out of the gas station, and he took a picture of his center console and had two of them sitting right there. I was like, that's hilarious. So wow, we have somebody watching from Italy. Nice. And they got the Power Thirst. Yes, Kenyans running as fast as Kenyans. Anyway, so today's discussion, again, I was originally just going to make it an audio file and do it on the podcast channel, but I think that there's going to be some value added to actually bringing you guys in, having a little bit of discussion on this one, because obviously your guys' perspective is going to differ from mine. And I'm going to take you back a week to SHOT Show. I sat for an interview with Recoil while I was there, and the interviewers were Kevin Dixie from The Real NOC and Trenchwork Chronicles, and it was like a 15-20 minute interview type thing, and it was a fun interview. We had a good time. They asked me some pointed questions, as they do, and when we wrapped the interview, I was asked the supplemental question, as in the cameras are off, and they're like, hey, we didn't get to this question that I really wanted to ask you because we ran out of time and they had a very, very rigid schedule. And the question was, what should the gun industry get rid of? And I'm like clearing my space off and like packing my stuff and headed to my next meeting type thing. And like over my shoulder, I'm like, Instagram and TikTok. And he's like, I want to talk to you about that like offline, later. And I was like, will do, will do. And I realized that that was, I was being facetious. I don't think that we should get rid of those things. In fact, I would say that that's actually a really, really bad idea. But I was just kind of being funny. And in fact, I would say that getting rid of, I don't think that lessening ourselves on any new age platform, any new tech, or anything that allows us to reach broad audiences, expelling ourselves voluntarily from those things is a really terrible idea. If you are not where the next generation is, then in a generation, you will no longer be there. You have to recruit from the next generation up because, hate to tell you, we're all mortal and we run out of time. So we have to continuously replenish those ranks. And to do that, we have to recruit new people that are coming of age. And if you aren't on those platforms, then you're not going to be doing the recruiting, and because you're not doing the recruiting, you will die out. So those are saying to get off of Instagram, TikTok, or is a terrible answer. But to defend myself for a second, and before we get to my real answer, is I have seen the consistent degradation of attention span and adherence or consumption of non-value added content for as long as I've been doing this, right? So I've been doing this for over a decade now. It's been a long time. In fact, this was my 10th SHOT Show this year, which was just kind of special. But with that continuous degradation of attention span and non-value added content consumption, I see a loss of some things in our culture across the board. And so that's not a gun industry problem. That's a cultural problem. And just because our culture has a problem doesn't mean that we should just be the bastion of we don't do that crap here, because that is how you get beat eventually, because you best believe that our enemies at all levels will leverage those tools to great effect. So yeah, that would be a fundamental mistake. So what is my actual answer now that I've had a little bit of time to think about it, some plane rides, some car rides, and all that sort of stuff? Because the question actually kind of bothered me a little bit because I didn't have a good answer. What should the gun industry get rid of? And I've come up with what I believe to be uh, something that could help advance our industry and our community into the future. So to set the ground rule or to set the groundwork, I want to talk to you about how things kind of work behind the scenes. And the short answer to what we as the gun community, gun industry, I suppose gun industry, but then it directly impacts the greater community, is the T&E program at manufacturers, vendors, and all that sort of stuff. So for those of you who don't understand what that is, let me explain it to you. So before I showed up to the industry doing video and photo and all that sort of stuff, the industry was dominated by print. And I would say that the gun industry has consistently been 10 to 15 years behind every other industry in the world as far as technological integration, as far as like its media and all that sort of stuff. Now, there were some things that were baked into the industry that that really allowed that to perpetuate. But when I showed up, there were hundreds of firearms magazines and publications and all that sort of stuff. And now you can only name like a couple because the new tech kind of took over, and I still have some good friends that do the writing game, but the field has been winnowed, so to speak. Um, and that's not necessarily a good thing, uh, but as far as how things have kind of always happened is, if you take it from the print old age, we'll describe that first, then we'll move to see what is kind of morphed into today. So you would have a publication, name any of them, Guns and Ammo, for instance, or whatever. That's the one that comes to my mind because that's the one that I've actually like held and actually read before. Mostly when I was like waiting to get a haircut when I was a teenager. But beside the point, um, how it would work is you would have a bunch of staff writers, so guys that write for it. Some of them full time, some of them freelance, all that sort of stuff. And they would go out and they'd have a quota of articles to write, right, on things that they were interested in. And some of those were baked in, but and then other ones would be, kind of at their discretion type thing, right? Well, how did that happen? Well, they would contact some manufacturer that they're interested in reporting on, and then that manufacturer would send them a tester gun that they would go out and play with for a little bit, and then they'd be able to write their article on, right? Um, who pays for that? And what happens to the gun afterwards? Well, typically it goes back after it's done being tested and it goes right back into the demo pool or whatever. Either it goes to a trade show and gets beat around by people who are finger banging it, or it goes into a pool of guns that go out to writers and stuff like that. Who pays for it? Well, at that point in time, the publication would be paying for like the ammo to test, and sometimes those budgets were not very big, so you may not get a very thorough test. And then other publications were really good about it, and they'd give you all the ammo that you needed, right? So there was some asset that was there, or there was some uh, entity there that was providing the assets for the writers to be able to do their thing, right? Well, that system does not work when you start integrating people that don't have some kind of higher thing. And you have to look at the money perspective of how does a publication make money? Well, there's a couple different revenue streams, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but the two big ones are subscription, so people paying for the magazine, and then people paying to integrate ads into that magazine, right? So I'm not going to lift the veil big time, but part of the reason that some of the publications went under and became unpopular is because they would be like, all right, writer A, you have to write a piece on this particular thing because they bought X amount of advertising in the article or in the publication, right? We know this has been documented. We know that this has happened, and you guys all saw it if you ever picked up a gun magazine ever, right? So they would baked into the purchase or the ad buy is some certain quantity of articles, and this is a big problem when like Harris Publications went under, for instance. If you none of you guys have ever heard of this, they had a whole bunch of publications underneath of them, and they would basically farm them out to different magazines and say, hey, you spend this much money with us and then you're going to get this many articles, right? um, that was sustainable for a while until an alternative came around. And the alternative is some jackass with a camera that reports on things without any kind of that structure. Because and if you ask any writer out there if they're being truthful, they would submit their articles to the editor and then they would say something that maybe went against something that the manufacturer wanted, and in doing that they would clean that up a little bit. And if any writer that you talk to will tell you that that happens, or at least it did happen, at certain points, because the source, the major source for revenue was those ad buys. Yes, you made money on subscriptions too, but the ad buys are really important. So that was the system that existed, and that was the whole thing that um, that manufacturers were integrated in, and it worked great for the manufacturers because yeah, okay, it's from their perspective. This sounds like something that is relatively unbiased. We send the thing out, they do the thing, and then they send it back to us, and there's not really any exchange on the surface level. But then when you dig a little bit deeper, yes, it was wrought with bias, right? So now you start integrating things like video, infotainment type video, like we do here. Um, People doing promotion on social media platforms and all that sort of stuff. They're all doing it under their own companies. And now there is no major publication that is feeding the project. So the T&E program today has morphed into this toxic situation where you've got guys at the top that are being paid to do things at a very high level. Guys in the middle, which is kind of where like sort of I sit, that get paid to do their job but aren't making ridiculous amount of money. And then the vast majority of people are the guys that are and gals that are just trying to get established, and they're absolutely being taken advantage of because the situation looks like this. When you don't have a lot of clout, even if you're providing valuable services to that manufacturer or distributor, we're going to send you out a gun. You have X number of weeks on that gun, and then you have to send it back. You have to shoot all of your own ammo. You have to spend all of your own time testing it. You have to spend your own gas to get to the range. You have to spend your own time to film, to edit, and optimize the video for distribution. And what do you get out of it? Ad revenue? Boys and girls, I can't give you my exact ad revenue because it's against YouTube terms of service, but I can tell you that it is a drop in the bucket compared to just what we spend on ammunition here. Okay, so that system is broken because that system, the previously existing system that it was based on, was never meant or even conceived to be able to support the type of content that is being created today. That not only because of the type, but also the volume that it is being put out there. So there are companies that absolutely take advantage of the smaller guys. So I almost guarantee you that if you have a YouTube channel that creates in the firearm space and they have fewer than 100,000 subscribers, that they are getting wrecked on a regular basis on the work that they do. Even if it's really high quality work, only a fraction of the projects that they do, they are actually getting paid for or making any money on. So to give you a look inside how things work here, because you guys know I've been transparent with you guys for years. This is my job. This is what I do. I have a variety of revenue streams that make money in a couple different ways, and they all kind of point in. And one of those is I work direct with manufacturers to test their guns. And then from those testing instances, and in most cases, we're talking about 1,000, sometimes more rounds of ammunition. Sometimes less. Like I'm not going to go out and shoot 1,000 rounds of 50 VMG through a gun. Like that would absolutely break the bank. I would like to do that, but bankrolling that is not really in the cards. um, but you guys, I've been clear with you guys from the very beginning that I don't really beg you guys for money. I don't really ask you to do the subscription model type stuff because there's plenty of it laying around. Um, And I see that some people do have a problem with that kind of model. And there's really two different ways to look at that I'll get to here in a second. So let me circle that on my things to do here. Yeah, here, we'll just do it. But for instance, when I produce a review for you guys off of some testing that I've done, I've got testing time, I've got filming time, editing time, and all that. Just even getting everything together, putting a shot list together, and all that sort of stuff. A testing list, just even storyboarding the whole thing, because both the filming and testing are kind of integral to one another. They kind of happen in tandem. Just even getting that prepped takes a couple hours, right? Things like, do I have the ammunition? Do I have the magazines? Do I have the, are the memory cards charged? Are the memory cards? Do they have space on them? Are the cameras charged? Did I accidentally shoot anything or hit anything with some high velocity spall last time? There are many things that kind of work into. I didn't use my screen enough, and my screensaver went down. There are many things that plug into it that just take a lot of time. So to give you a conservative estimate on how much time, if you watch a video that is product based from me, I've shot, and if it's a NATO caliber gun, 9mm, 5.56, we'll throw 300 blackout in there, 308, and you can rest assured that I've shot at least 1,000 rounds through that gun, maybe a little bit more. And I spent roughly 30 to 60 hours, depending on how complicated the project was, between all of those different time sucks. So just going out and sighting the thing in, going out and testing it to see the accuracy and, all that sort of stuff, and getting an idea of how it's going to rate against the manufacturer's claims. Because that's like really my bread and butter is the manufacturer claims A. Does it do A within a reasonable margin of error? Okay, cool. I never tried to ascribe mythical capabilities to some kind of manufacturer, and it's the manufacturer's job to jones up their product a little bit. They have a marketing director that is supposed to take the capabilities of the gun and then parse those down into a package that looks sellable, right? So there may be some embellishments in the marketing materials. So my job is to look at the marketing materials from a consumer standpoint and say, all right, you're claiming these 4 things that your whiz bang 5000 does. Does it meet those within a reasonable consideration? Here's how we're going to evaluate those claims, right? So doing all of that plus making the video and then dealing with YouTube and all that sort of stuff, anywhere from 30 to 60 hours, depending on the project, right? So that's an entire week's worth of work. Some people don't work that much in a week, but that's a whole week's worth of work. And I prefer to do multiple at a time. So I like to go out for like a couple hours and take like 3 or 4 projects with me at any given time, because it gives me a little bit of variety. I'm not just slamming on one thing, right? So the other thing about that is from a testing perspective, if we're talking about the validity of testing, you never take a thing out and just sit there and shoot 1,000 rounds through it. That's not a realistic use case. Very few people are going to do that to anything. What is more realistic is I go out and shoot a couple hundred rounds, today, and then the gun sits for 2 days and gets cold and, all that sort of stuff. And then we do it again and, 300 rounds that day, and then, 500 a day or 50 a day, something like that, depending on what we're working on that day and what the lighting conditions look outside. But right now it's super bright outside and the incident ranges are like really steep because it's this time of year. So like, I only got like 2 good hours of like filming for this particular type of video, right? But if it's really bright outside, I might do high speed stuff that day, right? You might not be able to film the rest of the stuff because there's too much contrast, right? So there's a lot that goes into that. But on top of that, the expenditures, right? So you all know that ammunition is really expensive. So in addition to the time aspect, there's the materials. And I see I I see the perspective. There's really two perspectives on people who professionally evaluate products and report back to the consumer base. There are really two perspectives on the professionalism side of that. There's either the people getting paid taints the work because they're being paid, so therefore they're going to say flowery stuff about it or mask various things about the product to deceive the public, right? I can see that perspective because I could totally see how that could happen. However, you all have jobs and you all go to work every day, and uh, just because you work there doesn't mean that you are beholden to vehemently defend the company, so to speak, right? Especially if they screw crap up, right? If your company is involved in a scandal, you just keep your mouth shut. You don't go out there and get on the news and start running your mouth about how awesome the company is. The other perspective, and this is the one that I resonate with, is when and I'm going to say this from the first person, when I invest in a project, like I go out and buy something, I get emotionally invested in that thing. And you can see this. You can see people who buy things and review them who give it a little bit more benefit of the doubt simply because they spent their hard earned money on it. I know that I operate that way. And then I have a very short fuse when I do that. So if something is going not, if it even sort of doesn't meet the manufacturer's claims, it's an absolute piece of garbage if I've invested in it. So I have identified that I work better under the scrutiny level of somebody else paid for it and I don't give a fuck about it. So I can ding it up, I can throw it in the bed of the truck because I don't have to worry about that gun being resold or that accessory being resold after the fact because I have no investiture in it. It's either going back to the manufacturer or it's going to be worthless when it leaves here because it's going to be scratched and dented. The finish is going to be ruined. We're going to actually do some testing on the gun. So that is how I look at the testing side of things. And I'm interested to see how you guys see this because there is an anti capitalist element in our community that is somewhat disturbing to me. I don't really get it. How people who ascribe to be super red blooded Americans uh, think that they have a sense of entitlement towards this type of stuff where um, companies shouldn't be able to make a buck because they sell guns and the people, the whole industry, the support jobs around those manufacturers shouldn't be able to turn a profit because it's associated with the Second Amendment. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm a principle before profit individual, but we also have to be realistic about that and understand that in order to foster the continuation of those principles, we still have to have a profit because people do have to work here. And people will not work if you do not pay them. They've tried that many times. The 20th century was a case study and how well that worked out. And millions upon millions of people died because they thought that that sort of concept could work, getting people to do things without actually paying them to do it. So, again, I'm interested on your guys' perspective um, on which one or which camp you kind of think is more prevalent. The people who, because they get paid to do something for a living, they are automatically tainted sources, or the people who buy the products and are emotionally invested are um, invested and therefore tainted on their perspective. I could see it breaking either way. I know which camp that I sit in. Now, and back to um, companies who take advantage of their content creators, because it is rampant. It is really, really bad. It's something that pisses me off because I have friends that are trying to make it, right? They're trying to start businesses, they're trying to be entrepreneurs, they're trying to do really good work, but they reach a point in their career where they're just kind of stuck and they can't progress because revenue's a problem. They can't invest in new equipment. They can't there's so many problems associated with it because you have these tightwad manufacturers. Some of them are very big that are unwilling to compensate people for good quality work. And so my response to um, this whole thing is the traditional testing and evaluation program should die and should die hard. You should not send guns out to somebody for evaluation that you are unwilling to compensate them for the work that they are going to do for you. Whether you are having somebody take photos, whether somebody is doing video, where somebody's testing things for you, because there's important aspects to all those. Right now, I just so happen to do all of it because I like to, when one revenue stream is down, I can grab another one, and one's up. Usually a couple of them are down. Very rarely everything is down all at once or up all at once. So there's always something to do. But you think about it like this: when you have if you think about the costs associated with it, especially because we in the firearms media space drastically undervalue the value of our work. I see it every single day, um, because if you just think about what you pay a photographer to come take pictures at your wedding, right? That is a day's worth of work that you feed them to, right? And you're paying a photographer 1,500, 2,000, sometimes $2,500 to show up, at least in my area, to come take pictures at your wedding, right? Um, they realistically did, 6 hours of work and they made that kind of money. I can tell you for a fact that I have never made that kind of money on a strictly photography project. And I go out there and roll around in the snow and roll around in the mud and simultaneously have to uh, take care of the unit itself in such a way where I can get the pictures, but it's also good enough to be tested afterwards as well. So, and then there's also the technical expertise associated with it. When you're a wedding photographer, you are just capturing the space, what actually went down. You might jones it up a little bit, but you're not supposed to be present in the work. Same thing with firearms photography, product photography. You're not supposed to be present in the work, but you have to have your presence in the work from the perspective of make sure that there's nothing wrong with the work, right? Like I published a thing from SHOT Show this year where they had like the full cartridge flying through the air. That's why you hire within the industry, because you need the technical expertise associated with the photographer. And that's why, I get messages all the time from people who want to try to edit. They're like, can we edit for you? I was like, you are unqualified. I don't care who you've edited for in the past. You are unqualified to touch this. Like there is no way that you can pull this off. Guaranteed. You might have one dude on your staff that might be capable of doing this. You're not going to be able to probably leverage that single person every single time something gets edited. So that's why everything gets done in house here, because there's a certain level of expertise that is required to work in the firearm space, because things have to be technically correct or you can't use the photo, unless you're that one company from SHOT Show that just yeeted it anyway on a big like 15-foot TV screen. So where are we today with the T&E program? Because many companies are moving away from that, which is good. They're now moving to, hey, this person's going to do some work for me. We don't want editorial rights or anything like that. In fact, when I sign a project with a company, they have to sign away their editorial rights. They don't get to to tell me what I cannot say, right? But a lot of companies have seen the light and seen that um, these types of new media are exceptionally important for the furtherance of their efforts, but also um, as far as the testing side of things is concerned, you might have the greatest engineers in the world, but they have all been laser focused on something from these angles. And then you need to take that thing out of the center of those engineers and put it out in the field and move it around to different environments and different people who have different perspectives to be like, no, you guys completely missed that thing over there. You ought to make that out of steel instead of aluminum, or you ought to make that out of aluminum instead of plastic because of these reasons, right? Put it out in the field, get it actually tested, and then, hey, now that we've got it tested, and we can now determine whether there are any issues with it or some of the issues that we thought might be there aren't there because it's been field tested now. So, like, there are many facets that companies are now identifying as exceptionally important that they need to actually pony up and go for and compensate the people who have generated careers in the space. However, there are many companies. Sorry, my screen. I'm going to get to the comments here in a section in a minute. I promise. Um, there are many companies that still hold out, and now the new morphing of the T&E program looks something like this. We still require you to do this. In fact, I had a company that tried to set up a meeting with me this year for the third year in a row, and it goes something like this. All right, we're going to send you the new thing. You have 2 weeks to turn it around to us. I mean, send it back to us. We're not going to supply any of the ammo, but we're going to give you an affiliate code, right? Or an affiliate link, excuse me. We're going to give you an affiliate link that you can earn commission on, and it's crap commission rates. Like they're not good whatsoever. I have family members who have spent their lives in sales, and those rates are trash. Tell me, if somebody more likely to tell you the truth about something if they've already been paid up front to do the work that they've been known to do, or are they more likely to conceal details that may shed a little bit of negative aspect on a product if they then have to make their nut on the project by selling it to you? I say all over my affiliates page, where I do have links and codes and stuff like that, that I am the worst salesman in the world because I don't give a shit whether you guys buy it or not. It is not my job to sell you guys things. It is my job to test them and then report to you. And it just so happens that the main revenue stream for that type of work comes from the clientele of the product that we're testing, right? It doesn't come from you guys, it comes from them. And that's the way that it should be, because there's plenty of money laying over there, because there are companies out there that absolutely overcharge for what it is that they do, just because of the perception of like, hey, if I charge half as much, people won't think it is as good as gun. There's plenty of money laying around over there. So the idea that we're hurting the manufacturer in any way, shape, or form is absolutely ludicrous. So I would submit to you that, at least in my personality, if I have to sell you something, that I'm probably more likely to conceal aspects of it than if I had just said, no, I work on a flat rate, you know? So the way that affiliate program works now is they give you those links. Well, you'll notice that you can't post links to things on most social platforms now, right? You can't post the links, the spam tracker links that cookie people, and then they get a commission off of it. You can't use them. You get your account shut down. So those programs, particularly for those little guys that we discussed, not so much the mid fish like me, and I'm very mid, And the big fish, who we won't name any names or anything like that, but for those little guys, those affiliate programs are set up from the beginning to ensure that they don't get paid. There are only a few people that work in my circles that actually make any money off of that sort of stuff. And the amount of work that they have to do would blow your mind. They have to set up burner accounts and do various things because their accounts are constantly being shut down by these social platforms, which is not okay. But the whole idea that I have to track the work and track the sales through some technology that is literally being shut off by the powers that be has caused a reversion in the technology. Before we had spam tracker links, we just used codes. Well, now we can't post spam tracker links for you to click on. So now we just have to use the code. So we've had a regression in the technology. I can tell you that I make not very much money off of the affiliate codes because I don't care. I actually set the rates almost always on those to be in your guys' favor. So if I'm working on a percentage, I take a small percentage of the commission and then I kind of roll that into a larger discount for you folks. There's some thought process there. I would rather you guys have the discount because you guys have been here and you've supported me for years. But then on top of that, you're more likely to actually use the code if it's a larger percentage off than me getting a larger commission. So I'll sell more if I give you the large discount than if I kept a larger percentage of the commission and gave you a smaller discount. So there's some psychology there, but really, to be completely honest about it, I don't care because it's not really. It's nice to have that supplemental stream, but it's not something that is something that I super focus on. I would much rather you guys have the benefit, and that's why my stuff is structured that way. Because again, I don't think that it is a business model that will continue to endure as these platforms become more and more restrictive on external link usage and probably even code usage eventually. So, I guess before we go to comments, what I would say is, again, I would reiterate that a lot of the guys that rely on affiliates to be able to get any kind of income into their channels or pages to even try to offset some of the costs that they are incurring are absolutely being taken advantage of by some of these companies that offer these. And that is why you see very few of those things offered on my affiliates page, because I get super hacked off when I see my friends that just haven't consolidated their business quite at the level yet, literally being screwed simply because that company over there believes that they are entitled to our work. Anyway, let's go ahead and read some comments really quick because I've seen some good stuff in here from you guys, and I want to kind of see what you guys have to say. First one that I see is honesty beats discount any day. I appreciate that. I've always tried to be transparent with you guys. You can pick up any video that I've ever published, and in the description box, you will see a huge wall of text that is a disclaimer that literally says, I get paid to do this. And that's how it is. And if you don't like that, then, go, then this isn't for you. But I have, you can have integrity and get paid to do something. If you don't have integrity, then whether you are being paid to do it or not will not matter. What bolt carrier group material do you prefer? Well, as far as the underlying material is concerned, to be honest, it doesn't really matter. I think what you probably are going for is the finish. And I personally like the silvery ones, so either nickel boron or chrome. And the reason I like those is because you can see when it needs cleaned and where it needs cleaned. Is the DLC coating probably superior? Yeah, probably. But it's black. And the stuff that we're trying to clean off of it is black. So I personally, something that's high contrast tells me that it's clean. That's how I think about it. Anyway, um, 2 week comment from Richard Cranium is 2 weeks to do a review, and a commission affiliate code is total garbage for a review. We want 2 months reviews or 2 year reviews, right? The initial comment said 2 weeks to review. Exactly. So to give you a perspective on that, it usually takes me, if I'm doing that, I said 30 to 60 hours somewhere in there. I usually like to take about 3 weeks to a month to get the project done. Because I've got multiple things working at once. Sometimes I'll do them a little bit faster if I'm getting really backed up, but particularly now that I cover a lot of news content and do stuff like this, for instance, I'm less worried about having to cram work out to stock the channel with content, because I'll just go film a news content, because there are plenty of people doing stupid crap out there for me to grab up for some kind of content to make for you guys. And you guys seem to be enjoying that sort of stuff. And plus, we could do stuff like this on a regular basis. And there's something on the channel constantly to keep it fresh and new. So I'm not really concerned about going out there and cramming work. And that's really important, because as far as there's two things there: quality. So I get to pick and choose when I film and when I test, right? So like right now, if I were to go like this, it's super bright outside, right? Those are not really good filming conditions, particularly when the sun is coming in low. It makes things look really blown out, really high shadow. You can use that for particular types of filming, but generally speaking, that's just going to be shooting, right? Actually testing, I might go out in a little bit and actually zero a rifle, and that's probably all I would do that day. Because it's not really usable for real good filming. Best days are overcast. Thing is, a lot of overcast days in the Midwest tend to be rainy days. That's the other thing that I do not do, is I do not take my really expensive stuff out in the rain, because I have lost more cameras to rain than just about anything else. Rain kills camera. Snow is great. If it's snowing outside, I'm filming, because that's not really going to hurt the camera any. It takes a little bit of time to get it used to the cold. But the thing about the cold is it sucks batteries. So your bandwidth, or the time that you can spend out there is much shorter. Like on a summer day, with my current setup, I can film for about 7 hours if I am going at it. In the wintertime, right now, it's like, 30s outside, high 20s. I've only got about 4 hours of burn time on my cameras, just because that's the way the technology works. It's a pain in the butt. So sometimes I'll store them. I'll store the camera batteries. I'll put them in the truck cab to keep them, from depleting quickly. But things just get inefficient. The other thing that I try not to do, the other thing that I have lost a lot of camera gear to, is wind. Things just getting blown over. So there's other things that you guys just don't see, like the number of sandbags I have to take with me on windy days, the extra equipment for the sound and all that sort of stuff. So like some of those days I just cut out, because I'm not like right up on it. And I'll just pick good days to go out. And good days to me look like dark, overcast days. People look, it's like, oh, it's such a gloomy day outside. It's cloudy and cold. I'm like, that's a fantastic day. I want to be outside doing my thing. People's like, it's bright and sunny. It's so beautiful. I was like, it's a horrible day. I don't know what you're talking about. Disgusting. Basically, Golem. um, um, Marketing. The comment is marketing critters are a different breed. Yes. So that was in reference to what I said earlier about um, marketing people jonesing things up. There's always marketing and reality, and we hope that marketing is based on reality. It might just be an embellishment on reality, and that's fine, right? We expect companies to want their stuff to look really good, right? That's their job. It's just how far have they taken it, and that's what my job really is. I will note that you guys put me there, and I greatly appreciate that, and I thoroughly respect the position that you have put me in. And I got to meet with many of you at the Shot Show this go around, where you guys have consistently highlighted the balance of a lot of the reviews, and I take that very seriously because if I lie to you and you go out and get a thing, you'll be able to know whether I'm lying or not, right? And you'll be like, I bought this thing because I thought it had a really good review. We've all gone places and oh, this restaurant has really good reviews, and then we get there and they bread their chicken wings, right? And you're like, bleh. Richard Cranium says, VSO advice for 2024: take care of your unit. I will do my best. um, Another comment: things that need to go. Overpriced money grabs, I'm not going to name names. And actually, you know what? I'm going to not read the rest of this because this is like specific things. I don't want to name specific companies in this. That's not really my bag. Um, but what I see in here is a lot of recognizable brands. And I'm here to tell you that there is, if you go to SHOT Show, there's a real display of this. There are thousands upon thousands of companies that make exactly the same thing as the high end tier, whatever, right? And that just as good. It's not like that. There are companies out there that are doing really good work. They just don't have the market share of some of those huge names that are charging ridiculous money for their product. There's nothing wrong with being a little bit of a poor. Don't make it a lifestyle. Just saying. Julian says this country is toast. Jeez. Sorry. Let's see if there's anything else good in here that I want to highlight. I'm not going to go all the way back to the beginning. I see some crapping on High Point in the chat here. I like my guys at High Point. They're an Ohio company. They're good people. And just because they produce a firearm that is relatively inexpensive doesn't mean that they deserve to be shat upon. I would say also that some of those guns, if you go to like a range day, those High Point guns run. They're not pretty, but they just spray some more lube on it. It just keeps on keeping on. I also see some crapping on 10 millimeter. What are you doing with all my millimeters here? What? I actually have a 10 millimeter gun in for testing right now. It's the new Taurus TH10. I'm liking that gun quite a bit. I will say right off the bat that the grip's a little bit big for me, and I have to actually reach to get to the magazine release. I'm used to it being kind of like right there, and it's a little bit farther up because it's a 10 millimeter gun. So Steve W says, honestly, I love your role doing T&E reviews. hey, this kicks ass, or Christ, this sucks, or fix this, and it's a great worth much more than zombie check out this great blah from new company. Right. I understand what you're. I think I get what you're going at here. Um, I do try to balance every review with some kind of continuous improvement. And in fact, oftentimes I select projects when I'm at like trade shows and stuff like that because I see something that needs improved. I'll see it and be like, "Hey, yeah, this thing is like 95% ready for prime time." But I think if they just tweak a few things here or there, that this is going to be like a 100% gun. So, um, uh, but anyway, I think that I've made my points, and my point again to rehash. And if you guys have any more questions, then absolutely post them. I'm going to be breaking the stream off here a little bit. We've been going for almost an hour, but to rehash my points, the thing that the firearms industry needs to get away from is the traditional T&E program, and supplementing it with an affiliate-based bullcrap model that takes advantage of people that are working for you is not the answer. The simple answer is to simply pay people what they are work to do work for you. You don't go to work every day and do it for free out of the goodness of your heart just because you like the subject matter. You may not like the subject matter, but let's say that you actually like your job. Just because you like doing it doesn't mean that you're going to do it for free, right? That's what we call a dream job, is something that you do and you get paid for it. Companies are not entitled to other people's work simply because they made a thing. And this kind of work has value. And the reason that this is a bigger issue than just, my world, and why you should drop my pen, should actually care about this, is there's a lot of cloak and dagger crap that happens in the gun industry. I think you guys have seen the shroud lifted a time or two over the course of the last couple years, where some kind of hideous behavior has come to light. And a lot of that cloak and dagger stuff is directly related to, we can't talk about the actual structure of how things get done, because if we do, then people will see that we have the ability to, in our budgets, to actually compensate people for this work. That means we're probably charging a lot extra for our product than we need to, because they've just been making money hand over fist because they aren't actually doing any marketing. The concept of marketing in the gun industry is, we made a thing and we put a picture out about it. Come buy our stuff. They think that just because they made a thing that it should automatically sell, and that they don't actually have to go out because they are reliant on this political system that's completely broken, that people are just going to panic buy it. And what it turns out, what you see if you look at the market data, is you have really hot years. Like, I guarantee you 2024 is going to be a hot year. It probably started about mid-year last year, right, when things ramp. But immediately following the 2024 election, regardless of who wins, you're going to see it sustained for a little bit, depending on the outcome. And then it's just going to turn straight vertical and drop off a cliff. And then all those companies that think that the way to market their product is to put pictures out about it and then expect people to buy it because, so and so is going to be president and they're going to ban your guns, or whatever. Now sit around and they're like, well, crap, what do we do? Nobody's buying our stuff. And then they have to rush to try to create marketing, and then it creates a toxic situation where everybody gets pinched, including you, the consumer, because now they have to make more on every single one of those sales, so they end up raising the prices. Versus if they just had a continuous uh, program where they're like, hey, we want people to be out there testing our new products and doing videos about it and showing their audiences what our stuff actually does instead of just puff pieces when we absolutely need it, because there are backdoor conversations like, you have to take that down because it makes us look a particular thing because you said a particular thing in a certain way. And I tell them to go get effed, because that was not in the agreement. They signed the agreement saying that they do not have editorial powers, because when things are in a slump, everybody gets tight. And when everything gets tight, everything gets really highly emotional, even in business. And the fallout from that is that prices ultimately end up increasing in periods where companies are not doing as well. So we need to get off of the scare marketing tactics that companies have become so used to using, to great effect, I might add, and move toward a more substantive marketing strategy. I'm not saying that you can't make political posts, because firearms are inherently a political issue. I'm just saying that it should not be your sole marketing strategy. And so many companies, that is all they do, and that's all they rely on. And then when that breaks, the people who end up getting hurt are the shareholders who invested in the companies, and then ultimately you guys end up being the people who do the testing that they didn't want to pay people like us to do. And that ends up with a whole bunch of recalled things, problems with the first batch. Like, you've always heard the thing, don't buy the first batch out of the thing after it's announced because they haven't worked the kinks out yet. There are a large percentage of companies out there that do that exact sort of thing. But you can rest assured that if there are companies that are sending their products out for field testing, then at least somebody else looked at it before they go out to market. So anyway, it is Saturday, so I recognize that everybody has things to do tonight. I need to break this thing off because we've been doing this for a little over an hour, and I have places to go and people to see. You have your guys a rest of the good weekend, and we will see you next week for some more. I might actually finish a testing video this weekend. I'm not entirely sure. Might get it done this weekend, but of course, we will always cover the breaking news in the gun industry. And I think I've got some fun projects, like some commentary projects as well, that you might actually enjoy. So anyway, have a good weekend, everybody, and we'll see you next week.